All right, it's already doing it. Yeah, it was something with those settings. Okay, there we go. All right, so we got it. Okay, awesome. So we are now streaming, so we are live. So I'm going to kind of put this over here and then put this here so I can see the chat. Okay, good. So he had something weird with the settings. All right, guys, we're back to our normal setup because my husband tried getting it with the fancy setup with Mrs. Holly Robinson. It sounds weird calling you Mrs. Robinson. You're just Holly to me, so it seems weird when I say that. But yeah, we couldn't get it set up correctly, so we're back to the old setup. I went in by myself until we figured it out. Sarah is on. There's Amber and Sarah. Hey, guys. Sorry about the other broken link. I don't know what happened. I had to unplug everything, plug it back in. So we are just a couple minutes late. But hi, Ashley, and hi, Rita. So Holly, thank you for being with us tonight. I know this was like kind of last minute for both of us. We're just kind of winging it tonight, guys. I do have an outline, a basic outline we're going to follow, but we're both like super busy women. I know Holly is very, very busy. So I'm very grateful that she took the time to come on tonight. I don't take that for granted. I know family time is special to you because you're a busy, busy woman. But I wanted your perspective because one of the reasons that you are so busy is you are a very talented, smart woman. And I started thinking about this subject a couple weeks ago. I was just really thinking of like through the years, I've been involved in a lot of different teen girls' lives when it came to, even before I had teen girls, now I have 2 teen girls, and I was involved in a lot of different teens because we were youth leaders for 10 years. So a lot of times we would go to camps where I was literally with them for 5 days, overnight, all that, youth activities. And so even before I raised them, I had a window into the different emotions and everything that goes on with teen girls. And I noticed that those who often had a rock solid relationship with their moms, they flourished in a lot of different areas that maybe teen girls didn't, that had a rocky relationship with their mom, or their mom was just mean. The ones who had really mean moms, and when I say mean, I mean maybe they put them down a lot. They, told them awful things about themselves. They never, praised them or whatever. So that's what I'm talking about when I mean mean. But it made me really realize the importance of that special bond. And oftentimes when I've seen a girl that is very down on herself, as far as thinking she's fat or thinking she's ugly or thinking she's not good enough, it is in direct correlation to parental relationships, whether that is a lacking father relationship or a lacking mother. Obviously, since we talk to women, this is going to be geared towards the mother-daughter relationship, not the father-daughter relationship. But I know that you are, in fact, you've done the personality thing, and we have pretty similar personalities.
Yeah.
So
I don't remember what my letters were.
ENTJ.
Yeah.
But are you an introvert? No, you're an extrovert, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're an extrovert. So yeah, ENTJ, which is like 2% of women or something. So it's very rare when it comes to women. But can you just give us a little bit into your upbringing? And we'll kind of go into positives and things like that. But
so I guess I'll talk a little bit about my mom maybe first. So my mom is, I would say, definitely an introvert. She's very like quiet, calm. She just has this very warm, calming presence about her. Never yells. Like growing up, I never heard my parents yell, either of them, really, ever. Now they would like talk sternly and raise their voice every once in a while, but never did I ever hear them yelling at us, really, or at each other. And so I think that's very different. I don't want to say different than my personality, but my mom's personality and my personality are kind of like polar opposites. And
mine and my mom too.
that was really good for me, because I have, especially as a child, like a strong-willed, outgoing, bold, stubborn personality.
Mhm.
And so I grew up, I have 3 brothers. And so my older brother and I were like 3-ish years apart. And then there's a pretty significant age gap. So then it's 9 and 11 years between me and my
Oh,
2
wow.
younger brothers.
Mhm.
So, and I'm the only girl. And so I had, because of that, one being the only girl, and then also there's such a big age gap, I never really had that sibling rivalry fighting for attention. And I often look at like my girls, and especially Clara, she's so similar to me, and our personalities, and just what the difference is between my upbringing versus theirs. And even though I had siblings, there was just a difference because I'm the only girl. And so like my older brother really wasn't fighting with me for my mom's attention. And so I had a lot of one-on-one time with my mom and a lot of time to just do girl things and to play together, like play dolls, go shopping. My mom, some of the things that I specifically remember about my mom growing up, we always read together, like at nighttime. And that was like a really good bonding time. And that was when we would just like talk about the day. And she was more of a listener. So she would just like listen as I would talk away. And my parents always laugh because I would talk so much when I was little that I would be hoarse by the end of the day. Just like talked nonstop all day. So it's like this ongoing joke in my family. And so she would just like listen, just sit and listen to me talk. And she never really interjected, or if I was like, she didn't really argue with me. Even if she disagreed, she would just kind of like let me say my thing, speak my piece. And I think that goes back to her just introvert, quiet, calm personality. She's much more of a listener than a talker. So we definitely spent a lot of time together. Something else, I was involved in a lot of different like extracurricular activities growing up, and my mom was always there, like encouraging me. If I was feeling discouraged about maybe I wasn't doing so great at that activity, or I was discouraged because it was getting really challenging, she was always very encouraging. And she was, I don't want to say like forceful, but like encouraging, and you made this commitment, you really need to stick it out. But at the same time, she wasn't, like she would allow me to stop doing something after like a season, or after like I had to complete that commitment, but I didn't have to like sign up again if I was miserable. But she did like definitely encourage me to try like my interests, and to keep going. And if things were discouraging, like it's okay, keep going, it's hard work. Things aren't going to always be perfect. And I remember one time, so I took piano lessons for a long time, and I had this piano recital. And for some reason, I decided that I was going to play my recital piece without my music. I don't know why I just decided to do that, but I did. I was probably, I don't know, maybe like 11 or 12. I think I was in middle school that age, maybe like 6th or 7th grade. Probably like 7th grade. And I like messed up big time. And I blanked out, completely forgot my recital piece. And so I was super upset after the recital. And she was like, "It's okay. You did really good. It still sounded really good. If people didn't know what the song was, they would have had no idea that you messed up. They didn't know how long it was supposed to be. They didn't know." And I just remember how angry that made me, because I was like, I didn't do good. I did really bad. it wasn't a good recital. I said, and it's just funny. I look back on that and like, she was just always thinking of the positives, trying to encourage me, being really loving. And Clara is the same as me with that. Like if I tell her, actually just tonight, she was writing numbers and they weren't perfect. And she kept messing up the numbers. And she's like, these look awful. I'm like, they look really good, Claire. You just have to practice. She's like, no, they don't. They look awful. And I just had a flashback to the time when my mom was like, your recital, you did so good. I was like, no, I didn't. It was awful. But
Oh man.
she was just very, very calming, encouraging, loving, and was not argumentative. Even when like looking back, like that, some of the things, thinking about things I said, or I didn't always treat my mom really well as a kid. And so I often think of how she responded to me. And I really try with especially Claire. I use Claire as an example because her personality is most similar to mine. And I really try to emulate that, although I'm not always the best at it because my personality is so different than
Right,
mine.
it is.
But I know like that was so good for me. And so I really want to try to give that to my girls. But
the way you're describing your mom reminds me of my Abby. And Abby has she's completely opposite of me. And I say she got my mother-in-law's personality, which is a good thing. I love my mother-in-law. But it's just the very introverted, would rather listen to people talk. And then you've got Chloe, who's like my mini me, and with her competitiveness and her stubbornness and different things like that. And I've often wondered, because my mom reminds me a little bit of what you're saying about yours. She was introverted as well. And she, especially with the whole committing, there were a couple times in my life, I very rarely quit things. Most of the time when I got invested, I was pretty invested when it came to music, piano, singing, flute, all three of those I was taking lessons for at one time. And I really excelled at those. So, but there were a couple things as far as academically, it was the same thing, encourage me to do it for a while. But then if I was completely miserable and hated it, she would let me switch subjects or, stop doing whatever it was I was doing, like taking Spanish lessons or whatever. So, in that aspect, she was a lot like that. But I think who I got the most encouragement from when I was growing up was probably my dad. My mom grew up in a very, it was a household where, I don't know if this was just like the era that she grew up in, the baby boomers grew up in, that their parents had grown up with a lack of affection in the home, as far as saying I love you, or even physical affection. And so for my mom, it was a lot harder. She's gotten better, she's gotten older, but as we were growing up, it was really hard for her. She really had to step out of her comfort zone to really show affection or verbally tell us like, I'm proud of you, different things like that. It was really, really hard for her to do that. And I think with each generation, it's gotten better because I've tried to do better in that area with my own kids, and she tried to do better than her, parents had done. So, I don't know, was it easy for your mom to give you praise and different things like that?
yeah, my mom, she definitely was, like I said, she's not like one to talk a lot, but when she did, it was always, I feel like, very warm and positive and encouraging. And I had a thought while you were talking, and now I completely lost it of something else I was going to bring up.
Maybe it'll come back to you.
It'll come to me.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, it'll come back to me. But yeah, she definitely was big on praise. And so my mom was an elementary school teacher before, I think she taught for maybe like the first year of my life, and then she was a stay-at-home mom. So she, I feel like because of that, she was really good at dealing with kids and different personalities because of, she had a lot of experience in teaching and dealing with kids of all, backgrounds and personalities. And And that definitely, I think, helped. But she was really good at like praising and saying that, she's proud of me. And something else so because I was the only girl, I think that made our relationship a lot stronger. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So my mom's upbringing, my mom she's one of 5 kids. And my grandfather actually died in the Vietnam War. So my grandma was a single mother for my mom. My grandfather died when my mom was 8. So, and my mom is, she has one younger brother. So she's toward the end of the birth order. So my grandma is very similar to my mom, and that she's like very warm and positive and like shows a lot of affection. But my mom is like, she shows affection through not just like verbally, but through like working for you, like acts of kindness, basically. So it's not that we didn't have chores growing up, but I think that was like one way that my mom really showed, and she is still like this, really shows affection by like just like cooking and cleaning and making sure you have everything that you need, and just is a busy bee. We call her a busy bee. She's just constantly doing things for other people, like especially her family. And my grandma is the exact same way. And I think that my mom gets that from my grandma, because my grandma was a single mother for, the majority of my mom's upbringing. And so, even my mom worked really hard to help run the house because my grandma was working to support the family. And so they both definitely, and my dad's mom, so my other grandma, was very similar in that, like just work. They showed love through acts of kindness, I guess.
Right.
More so than verbal, because they're just very introvert, and that they aren't, they say those things, but it's more of like acts of kindness, I would say.
Right. That might be one of their love languages too. And that's why they do that. How do you feel that your mom influenced you in positive ways just through the years, as a little girl, as a middle schooler, as a teen, and what are you trying to incorporate in your own life based off of how she raised you when it comes to your own girls?
So one thing that my mom did when I was growing up, and that she still does to this day, she's very regimented. Like, she has a routine and she sticks to it. Like, if I call her during the day at a certain time, I pretty much know what she's going to be doing. And so mostly in the morning, like when she gets up in the morning, she gets up, she exercises, she showers, she gets ready, she does her devotion, she eats breakfast, and then she starts her day. And like, she's always been a stay-at-home mom, but she's always gotten up in the morning, showered, gotten dressed, and that's just like her routine. And that was especially how she gets up and she does her devotion in the morning. Like, she would always like have a specific chair that she would sit in, and she would read her Bible. And so I will admit that I'm not the best at doing those things in front of my kids, because I want to start doing that, because that was a big like, I look back on that and I see that in my mom, and that was something that really stood out to me. And so, I would like that to be the same for my girls. But right now, with them being so little, I like to have time by myself to do those things where I'm not distracted. But then at the same time, like, I feel like it'd be very beneficial for them to see me doing that. But I don't know how much I would get out of it.
I know. Well, just like even I find it's better for me to do my Bible reading when the babies are taking a nap, or, they're doing quiet time. And so then once again, I mean, I guess the older kids will see you doing your Bible reading, but the younger ones aren't going to for a while until they're past the nap stage.
So that's definitely one thing. Another thing is just that my mom did for me was just being a constant known, like she was very predictable, very reliable. I always knew what to expect with her. I always knew that I could like go to her and she would be there to listen. I never had to worry about like, or felt like I had to worry about her being like really judgmental, or, I just knew if I had a problem, I could talk to her about it and she would be like judgment free and just warm and positive. And, she very empathetic. Which is funny. Like I would get so mad when she would say like, it's okay, we'll get through it and things like that. I'd be like, it's not okay. It's not okay. I'm telling you a problem. It's not okay.
Oh,
But she was just very consistent. And so I think that that was really, especially for kids, they need that consistency in life. And um, as as a teen, especially, your life, I feel like teens are going through all kinds of changes and emotions, and just to have that like stability, somebody that was like I knew I could go to. She was there. She was just a calming presence. And I didn't have to, be fearful of, backlash or negative remarks or comments or judgment, or, she always took the time if I needed her. So
right. I think that's really important too. And I mean, obviously, I really feel like once your daughters, when they're young, it's like I have like every age right now, right? I have adult, teen, middle school,
yeah.
baby. I mean, I have every age, and you really see the shift in the relationship as they get older. So right now we've got Kelly, who's 2.5 and is just so strong-willed and stubborn. But even though she, we're right in the midst of the training stage, it's always, Mommy, I love you. Mommy, I love you so much. They just like, they adore you, at 2.5. And then we've got Lana. Lana's still she's kind of in that adoring stage, but she's kind of switching over into the cynical stage, is what I call it. And Allie's in that stage right now, like the preteen, like 11 to 13. They're just like, they've realized my mom has faults and my mom's not perfect. And, they're not quite into the adoring stage. And then you've got the teen girls, and you got sassafras. I call it, stop being a sassafras, got Chloe the sassafras. And then you've got Abby. She's never really been sassy, but she doesn't have that personality. She's an introvert. So she doesn't like confrontation. So she would rather just go along with the flow than rock the boat. But you just kind of have every spectrum. And I feel like when they do become teen girls, you do have to intentionally work more on the relationship. I don't know if you've noticed that switch even with you and your mom. You kind of go through those different stages, but I've tried to be intentional about it, because once they reach teenage, you're not going to have all that much time left with them. I mean,
Yeah.
And I want to have a relationship with my daughters that continues into marriage and, their adult years, whether that does go to marriage or something else. I want that relationship to continue. So I don't know. Did you notice that shift with you even growing up?
Yeah. So my something that my parents did, and I mean, whether or not this is like, oh, right or wrong, I think it was definitely beneficial for me. But they always like, I had a lot of they put a lot of trust on me, and like I had a lot of freedoms because they trusted me, and I took that very seriously. Like I knew that they trusted me, and so like they didn't micromanage me, or I don't know, like they gave me a lot of freedom, and that I didn't take that for granted, because my older brother, he was very rebellious, and he like lived a really awful teen life and young adult life. So I watched that and watched what my parents went through dealing with him and raising him. And the fact that they still, like, even I know, like, my brother and I are obviously two different people, but a lot of times it can be easy for parents to like deal with that and then put tight restrictions on their other kids, even though their other kids aren't living that same life or causing the same problems. So I especially as like a high school age, I saw what my brother put my parents through. And so I um took it very seriously that they gave me freedoms and trusted me and let me do things. And they also put a lot of responsibility on me. So I had two younger brothers, 9 and 11 years younger than me. And so even when I was like 9, like from the time my first younger brother was born, like they really trusted me with them. And I would do a lot to like, I was constantly babysitting and just like taking care of them. And so I think just the trust that they had for me and giving me a lot of responsibility. Um, I still look at that and, they just the trust. It wasn't even though my older brother was very rebellious, they didn't let that affect their relationship with me or affect how they parented me.
Oh, I like that. I like that
Yeah.
you're saying that too, because that's exactly how I'm raising Abby right now. She'll be 17 next week, and she has a lot of responsibility, but I feel like she's completely capable of it. And I trust her too. I don't feel the need to micromanage my children when they've not done anything to, destroy my trust. Even my almost 20-year-old, I don't micromanage him or Jason or Abby. It might be different if, like your brother, they had given me cause not to trust them, but they haven't.
Right.
So I've never tried to micromanage them as well. So but what do you think? So that's kind of the way I was just talking about intentional ways with my teen girls. I feel like that's different than my younger girls. I feel like with younger girls, that love is just there, like, Mom, you're the best thing in the world. As they get older, they start realizing you do have faults and you do have a temper and you do mess up sometimes. And so then that's where you have to become intentional about having that relationship with them. Um, I've noticed this trend a lot. A lot of moms on the stricter side, maybe, or maybe even the over spiritual side, will talk about how they need to bring their daughters down because they don't want them being prideful. Do you think that there is a difference between self-confidence and being prideful?
Yeah, I definitely think that.
Mhm.
um, I think that, and I don't really know a good way to describe it, but I would say self-confidence is, I think, kind of equating to self-worth. So you
Yeah,
recognize that you have value and you recognize that, um, you know, people aren't necessarily better than you.
right,
Everybody has worth. I think that goes into self-confidence, and loving yourself. And it's okay to love yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean like being prideful. And I would say prideful would be when you take that self-worth or love and boast about it,
right.
or kind of be like, I don't know, showing off or spouting off, tooting your own horn kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and that is where I would say it gets into being prideful.
Mhm.
Um, or look when that self-confidence turns into thinking that you're better than other people. Um, but self-confidence, I think, is important and healthy, especially in young girls. Um, helping them realize, that they do have worth, and other people aren't better than them. And but then at the same time, like your pride versus self-confidence, not being boastful about it.
Right. And I mean, all through the Bible, it does tell you, there are verses about God, knitting you in your mother's womb and God, you being fearfully and wonderfully made. So
Yeah.
it's not wrong to think of ourselves as God's we are God's creation, and God, he knit us all together, and we are a wonderful thing because of that. We can have self-worth, and that just being God's child. But what about healthy self-esteem versus destructive view of self? Because I've often seen this too with girls who don't grow up in a home with maybe affection, or, their moms building them up, really encouraging them, like your mom did with you. And oftentimes, a lot of times with girls, the first time a guy comes along who knows how to flatter them, they instantly, they fall prey to that.
Yeah.
And they just don't know how to take that because they haven't. Whereas I've seen girls where from the time they're small, their dad and their mom have told them, you are worth something. God created you, and you're special, and you're unique, and God has a special plan for your life, and really just build them up that way. If a loser guy comes along and tries something with them, they're like, no, what are you even thinking? What are you trying to do? So can you just kind of go over maybe the difference between having a healthy self-esteem, healthy self-confidence versus a destructive view of self? What could a destructive view of self look like?
I think if you have a healthy self-confidence, and I think that this is really important from a father-daughter relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely important for a mother-daughter relationship, but I think this is really important from a father-daughter relationship
It is.
as well. I would even say maybe more so from a father-daughter relationship. But if you instill in your daughters and in yourself self-worth, then you're not gonna, or you'd be less likely to fall prey to like a loser type guy, because you value yourself. And if you set, standards, and you realize like you're worth something, then you're going to be able to, and your girls are going to be able to identify, um, you know, this loser guy is not um, worth, or I'm worth more than the way that they're going to treat me, or I'm worth more than, I have higher standards than. And it's not saying like I'm better than that person, from like every person has worth, and everybody's like a valuable person from a human standpoint. But just obviously you need to have standards, and you need to teach your daughters to instill those standards, because you don't want them to marry somebody who's going to treat them really poorly. And so it's important to, have them realize like they're worth being treated good, and they're worth being loved, and they're worth, well, they're precious.
Right.
So they deserve to be treated that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if a father treats his daughter that way, then she will desire that in a husband.
Yeah.
And if a father is like instilling those principles, and showing like a father should show his daughters how a husband should treat them. Obviously a husband-wife relationship is a little different than a father-daughter relationship, but I think like the standards can come from that father-daughter bond. Because I think the principle is true that a lot of times daughters will seek a man very similar to their father.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think that if you're not building that self-confidence, and you don't help your daughters, set standards, or realize that they're worth good treatment, that they could easily fall prey to like false flattery, or even like very toxic type of relationships.
Yeah. And one thing that I've told my teen girls as they're getting older, and perhaps entering, different phases of relationships in their life, whether that is with the opposite sex, if a guy will not go to your dad to try to get you, then he's not worth it. If he's trying to sneak around, that's a big red flag. So my girls know that if there's ever going to be a guy interested in them, he better be going through my husband. He better be going through their dad, because, and I've told them too, you guys are worth working for. you're worth waiting for.
Mhm.
So if he's the right one, he's not going to mind, pursuing you through your dad, not
Yeah.
sneaking off, trying to, secretly text you or secretly call you, or, trying to get you to meet him somewhere, that's huge, huge red flag. So,
Yeah.
I've made them, my girls, my teen girls, I've tried to drive that home to them.
Yeah. And unfortunately, this comes up a lot, how an ideal situation is not always reality. So this would go towards probably like young girls who are maybe a first generation Christian,
Yeah.
and maybe you're a teen and you're a first generation Christian and your parents are not saved, or you don't have a good relationship with your dad, or maybe you don't know your dad.
Hmm.
Um, and so like the ideal situation is you have a great relationship with your parents, you're raised in a good home. And so uh, a man or a young gentleman who's wanting to talk to you would go to your dad first. Well, that's not always reality, unfortunately. You might
Right.
not have that father figure. You might not have. And I think that can be hard for girls. And that doesn't bring down your self-worth. It doesn't bring down, that you deserve that. But I think that can be hard for girls too, who might not be in a good situation with their dad, or maybe their dad's a loser. That can happen.
Right.
Um, and you
Yeah.
can't control that. And that doesn't necessarily bring down you as a person or your value.
What would you suggest to that girl who is not in a good home, but there is someone interested? Um, would you suggest just accountability to maybe another Christian lady, or
Yeah, I would say, um, if she has a good relationship with her mother, or that, I think the guy should talk to the mother if
Mhm.
that's the only parent figure for sure. Or if there's like another older family member, gentleman, maybe a grandfather, or
Mhm.
if you're close with like an older brother or like an uncle, a cousin, somebody like that you're close with that has kind of stepped into that role as a father. If you don't have that, then I would fall on like church family at
Right.
that point. Like you have a church family, or if you could even bring this up to like your pastor, like do you ask his opinion? If you have nobody else, you can ask your pastor's opinion on, a guy that might be interested in you. But I definitely think it's important to get I don't want to say other people's opinions, but you can definitely be
Your
like
feedback.
blinded by love, or, miss red
Right.
flags, or,
Mm.
um, so yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting there is safety in the multitude of counselors. So,
Yeah.
just getting feedback and stuff from people for sure. Have you often noticed, and I've often noticed this, that a mother's view of herself is often mirrored in her daughter's view of herself?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
I try
Um,
so hard not to, and I fail sometimes, but I'm so fat. I try so hard not to say things like that.
yeah.
It's, I don't want that. I don't want my daughters hearing that and them getting this attitude that they can, because I don't want them I think they're beautiful. I don't want them being down on themselves. So I try not to do that, but I fail sometimes.
Yeah. I definitely think so. Um, I think that I've seen it both ways. I've seen the moms that are like real extreme with into like being vain, and
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I can tell, and that in their daughters a lot of times that comes out.
It's
And
true.
then the opposite, there's like mothers who, it's kind of one extreme or the other. It can be mothers who are like really down on themselves.
Mhm.
Um, Oftentimes their daughters are the same way. But then I've also seen where like mothers that are like very vain can often tear their daughters down.
Mm.
It's like they um are very like nitpicky
Hmm.
about things. And
Competitive,
that,
maybe, do you think? I don't
what
know.
is it?
Competitive, maybe?
Yeah, maybe competitiveness, or just like they point out their flaws instead of
Mhm.
like trying to build them up and encourage them. And I think that goes back to like mothers building healthy self-esteem in their daughters, and a positive encouragement, and that not being there can really affect a girl's view of herself.
Right. Exactly. So tell me how it turned out that you chose the field that you did. Did your mom play in a part in that, or was it more just you do whatever you love, or you do whatever you like? So I know I'm kind of deviating
I
from
would say
that,
it was more of just my parents encouraging me to do what I'm interested in.
yeah.
So they never like, my dad's a car salesman and my mom was a teacher. So it's not like they were in any type of medical field or had any real knowledge about, medical field. So it was just kind of something that I was interested in. And they just encouraged me to pursue my interests and encouraged me to, research it. And yeah, they always encouraged me to pursue my interests.
Hmm.
It was never something that they like were, hey, you should do this and go down this path. It was more of, I was interested in it and they encouraged that.
Well, it's kind of the same way with me too, because neither one of my parents were even musical. And that's kind of the path I went down as far as
Mhm.
what I was interested in and what my talents were in. So I kind of went down that path. Do you still play piano?
Yeah.
No.
Sadly. That's one thing, like, I, um, my parents did not like force me to continue. And I did not have a good piano teacher.
Hmm.
And she was more like, she would like give me assignments and I
Hmm.
would do the assignments and then I would come back and she would say, okay. And then I'd like play her the song or whatever. And then she'd give me a new assignment and I would go and do that. So there was no real instruction.
Hmm.
And so I just, I lost interest.
Hmm.
I was in a like band in the high school and I loved that. So I played the flute. And so I was much more focused on that. And so I just lost interest in the piano and I'm like really sad about that. Like I
Yeah.
wish like looking back, I'm like, sometimes I'll even like not be mean about it, but tell my mom, like, I wish you would have pushed me a little harder to stick with the piano.
Um,
But yeah, so unfortunately, no, I don't really play at all. I can read music. If
mhm.
I sat down with the song and practiced for a long time, I could figure it out and be okay. But I can't just like sit down and open up a hymnal and play. I would have to really work hard at it.
Yeah. My sister right below me, all of us are pretty musical with the exception of my brother and the sister right below me. My other two sisters one of them was very advanced at flute and piano, and the other one is very advanced at piano and star violin. And so my sister below me, she's always saying that to my mom. Why didn't you make me keep on taking
Yeah.
lessons? My mom's like, you hated
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
She's
That's
like,
my mom too. She was like, it was always just like a fight. Like you didn't
it
want to
was.
practice. You weren't
Yep.
enjoying it. And I think looking back, it was just I had a bad teacher and I wasn't getting good instruction. And so it was just like really mundane.
You
And
were
I
just
felt like
frustrated.
I wasn't really advancing. I was just like getting these songs and she'd be like, okay, learn the song. And then I would, and I'd come back a week later and play the song and that was it. And then I'd get another song. So it was just no real instruction. And I'm sad
Right.
about that.
Yeah, that is sad. But yeah, let's go over the powerful influence of just even the power of words, and then the power of praise versus destructive talk. Because I've seen mothers that can be pretty mean to their daughters, and as
Yeah.
far as how they talk to them, what they say to them. And I just sit there and I think, this is another human being with a soul and a will and feelings. And, even though they're your daughter, that doesn't give you the right to just, cut them down like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that this goes into personalities. I think this is harder for extroverts And I'm saying that from a personal standpoint because I know I lose my temper and I'll say things that I wish I wouldn't have said. And especially like with me, Claire's only 6, but man, she's something.
Is Claire your oldest or your second?
She's my oldest.
Okay. I always get her. Anna's the second?
Anna's the second.
Okay. I always get those two mixed up.
So Claire is like really sassy.
I have a
really,
couple
really sassy and really strong-willed. And she's very smart. And so like she knows what to say and she knows.
Push your buttons.
Yeah, she knows. And so our personalities are so similar that we just like really butt heads easily.
Yep.
And so I'm like constantly trying to remind myself of, I just like will have flashbacks of myself acting the same way that Clara's acting. And I think like my mom would just sit there and take it. Like she would just stand there and let me spout off and say my thing. And then she would address it. Whereas like when Clara's spouting off and saying her thing, it's really hard for me to like not snap back. And so I really have to work on controlling what I say and not.
She's only 6. I'm sorry, but it's going to get a whole lot
I know.
worse.
I know. And so I like really try. This is like one of the things that I'll sit down and rehash the day. And I'm like, man, I really lost my temper there. Or I really wish I wouldn't have said that. Whereas like Anna, she is the polar opposite personality wise as Clara. She's like very tender, she gets a little sass every now and then, but she's not like, she will be very emotional and cry and her feelings get hurt. And
that's Abby. Abby and Chloe are polar opposites too, but it's reversed. Abby's the oldest, Chloe's the second.
So with Anna, it's a lot easier to like she'll just, if for example, when she gets spanked, she will immediately want like consoled and hugged. Right. And when Claire gets spanked, she's angry and will like sass real bad. And it just like makes her punishment so much worse because she's like, she gets spanked and will immediately start sassing and talking about why, I don't know, just she's 6.
Why her life is so unfair.
Yeah. Why exactly. why her life is so hard and why it's so unfair.
Yeah.
And she will constantly say like, how come when Anna gets spanked, she gets hugged and when I get spanked, I don't? I'm like, well, it's not that you don't get hugged. It's that you get spanked and you immediately start sassing.
Yeah.
And I'll like, sometimes I'll like pick her up and put her on my lap. She's like, I don't want to talk about it. And then she'll get up and run off.
I know. It's so funny because when they're teenagers too, because I know I'll be getting after Chloe and then Abby will just be like, Chloe will just miss sassafras and Abby will just be like, Chloe, it's not hard just to shut up. Why are you talking still? Like, why is it so hard? Just be quiet.
Yeah.
Abby's like, it's so easy to just be quiet. And Chloe's like, no, it's not. You don't understand.
Yeah, that's Clara. She just like can't stop. And she's so much like me in that she will fight until if she thinks she's right, she will not let it go. And that's exactly how I was and still am, but I've been able to like rein that in. And
you have to as an adult. You have to you have to learn what's important and what's not. Okay, is this really worth it? Okay, obviously there are some things, and that's one thing that I think has helped with our type of personalities because being in the ministry is just being a good Christian takes a lot of work. And you've got a lot of stuff working against you. So the fact that we are determined to, stay on the path that we're on or whatever, that takes a lot of grit and that takes a lot of will. So I think in one way, our personalities are good for that type of,
for sure,
of things. So yeah, with the different personalities, I would definitely, I find that with my daughters, it works better when I hone in on their strengths and I really, praise them when it comes to their strengths and tell them what they're good at. And then that will kind of help if there is a correction now, you need to work on this though. If you've already focused on the positive in their personality. And I do try to point out the positives because every personality has positives and every personality has downfalls, whereas Abby might not be as strong-willed. She hates confrontation so much that she is borderline. Sometimes she lets, for lack of a better term, she lets people walk all over her. Right. She doesn't know when to say no. She doesn't know when to set her boundaries. So that's one thing that I don't know. And your kids better than anyone.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I think that I try really hard to just look back at, because I feel like my parents did a really good job with my strong-willed personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try really hard. Like when I'm in the heat of the moment, I just like sit there and think about, okay, like I'll have like memories of, okay, I acted this exact same way. And then I just sit there and think about like my mom, and she would just sit there. And it's not like she to her fault, she's kind of like what you're saying about Abby, is she will let people walk all over her.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't argue back. She would just let me cool down and then talk about it later. Or, she would calmly say, we're done talking about this, or we're not going to argue about this, and deal with it like out of the heat of the moment. And so that's kind of what I'm not good at it, but I try to emulate that.
That's a good approach. Yeah, that's the total opposite of my personality, because I'm like, we're gonna get this taken care of. But that kind of throws a wet blanket on it when, if you're just calmly, we're done, we're not talking about it, and then you walk away. Mm-hmm. That might be a good approach, actually.
Yeah. And just and it's not like she would not deal with the situation, but it was not usually in the heat of the moment. Mm-hmm. And it was usually like, because she hates confrontation. Mm-hmm. She does not like confrontation. So she, would walk away from the situation to let things cool down. Whereas my personality is to stay in that situation and deal with the problem head on.
That's how I am too.
So, and I think that it was good for me that my mom was like that, because it avoided big blowout fight arguments, because that's just not her personality. And so I try really hard, because that was good for me. And I think that for Clara, that will be good, as opposed to just like constantly fighting with me. Jason is always laughing. I would like text him during the day, and because he and Clara do not have the same arguments or little spouts and fights. And he's like, I feel like you and Clara are always on some kind of little fight.
Like, oh my word, that sounds like my husband. I know. He's like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't talk to you the same way she talks to me.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, it is true.
So, I know I can't change my personality, and I know like my relationship with Clara is obviously going to be different than my relationship with my mom, but I had a really good relationship with my mom. So I really want to, build that same strong bond with my daughters that I had with my mom.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And as you obviously, you are not quite there as far as seeing James's personality, how different it is. I mean, maybe you are. He's, you can see how different he is, but obviously raising boys is a lot different than raising girls. And, as my boys get older, though, I still notice the need for praise. My boys are pretty much adult men now. And just like our husbands need us to respect, praise them, and you'll see this as your boy gets older too, but
yeah,
my boys also need that. So I think just across the board, boys, girls, whatever, they're going to need the power of, just showing them affection, telling them you're proud of them, telling them that you love them. I really think that girls find, I'll never forget when I was pregnant with one of them. One of the questions that I was asked at one of my first appointments was if I wanted the baby. And I was like, yes. And I was like, that's a really weird question.
Yeah.
Why are you asking that? And they said, we asked that because you don't understand that the importance, even babies from the time that they're in the womb, they can sense if their mom wants them or not.
Yeah. And sadly, there are obviously a lot of women that don't want their babies.
Mm-hmm.
Like that seems like a really weird question to us because of course we want our babies, but I guess, you know, in the world, there are a lot of people that sadly don't want their babies.
Yeah. And the nurses were just telling me that it's just one thing that they do to kind of just feel out how the mom is, because that really does play into babies, even after they're born, their development is just the interaction between the mom and the baby. And, you know, this is like my first or second pregnancy, so I'm new to all this stuff, but to some of us, it just comes natural. Like, yeah, well, you know, but I guess there are a lot of moms, it's a lot of red flags if the mom doesn't want the baby, or, you know, so that's just something that they look out for. But let's quickly, because I hear Kelly in the background. So let's go over maybe just the last part, you know, focusing on the different relationships and different needs, which we've kind of gone over, which is the different personalities. Obviously, every kid is going to have a different personality and it's going to need different things from us as moms. Whereas, and that's just focusing on the strengths and weaknesses of each child, which we kind of went over as far as like, you know, Abby being different from Chloe and Claire being different from Anna.
Yeah.
And, you know, as your girls get older, you're going to see all those different things. But what is one way, are you an affectionate family? Do you try to say, I love you often and all that?
Yeah. And it's funny because my family growing up, we didn't I don't want to say we didn't say I love you, because we did, but like we weren't a really touchy-feely family. Like I'm not like a big hugger. And I think that like part of that, I was definitely more like that with my dad than my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like more like I would cuddle with my dad.
Yeah.
More than my mom.
That's exactly how the family dynamics were in my home too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's not because my mom wasn't a cuddly person. I don't know. I feel like part of it is because my mom is always working. She doesn't sit down.
Oh, the acts of service thing. Yep.
Yes. And my dad is more like really laid back and always relaxing. And so I feel like the like affection, like physical affection and the I love yous came a lot more from my dad, my mom. But I never felt a lack of love from my mom.
Right.
If that makes sense. But so like with our family, like with Jason and I and the girls, I feel like there's a lot more like physical hugs and kisses than there were with me. But I didn't feel like I was lacking in that. I'm just kind of like looking back, I don't, yeah. But that's hard for me because I'm not, and I try real hard to work on this because my kids are like they like to be held and hugged and loved and kissed on. And I'm not a physical person. I don't like being touched. So that's hard for me. And I know kids need that. And I know it's super important. So that's something that I have to like really like try hard not to make my kids feel like they're unwanted, and try hard not to make them like feel like I'm throwing them off of me.
Right. Sometimes I will tell mine though, okay, you're in my bubble. Same. You need to back up. You know, when I feel like it's just been too, I have like a touch quota, I think.
Yes, I'm the exact same way.
Throughout the day. And sometimes I just need a little space. But, you know, that's just part of them recognizing that you have boundaries too, and you have needs too. So, it's just a working dynamic all around. But yeah, I do think, like I said, my mom came from a home that no I love yous. In fact, she talked about how as my grandpa got older, he finally started, after she was an adult, telling her that he loved her. And that was so special to her because she didn't hear it at all growing up. So I feel like she did better. Every night before we went to bed, she would tell us she loved us and give us a hug. And, so it was like, I knew that routine every night that was going to happen. Whereas, and then with me, I've tried to take it a step further. I'll try to do it throughout the day.
Yeah.
Especially with my littles, I do feel like they need to be held and loved on, and, that physical affection with my littles. So I feel like, if every generation improves, we're on the right track.
Yeah.
So, and I want my kids to be better than me, and I want them to be a better mom than I am. So, I'm striving to, compensate for maybe the areas I felt were overlooked when I was younger. So, I don't know. I feel like as long as we're, getting better, we're on the right track. So are there any parting things that you want to say as far as just importance? I know obviously, your daughters are still young.
They are.
But you're kind of going off. I think you have a good guideline for what you want, or how, the type of mom that you want to be to your girls.
It's just funny to me because when you were like asking me to do this topic, I was like, this is a really good topic. I don't feel like qualified to be the one talking about it.
But I think you do, though, because you're going off a lot of past experiences from your mom, and she did a great job raising.
My mom did amazing. I am still working on that.
Yep, me too. I don't feel are you kidding me? Almost every week I don't feel qualified to give advice. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I definitely look to my mom, and because she did like with me, I really can't look like, I don't know. Some people grow up and say like, I wish my mom would have done this, or I wish my relationship would have been better. And I can't, I'm so fortunate I can't say that, because my mom is awesome and did like amazing. So I really hope that I can improve. Clara and Anna and Emma will grow up and be like, had a really good relationship, and will want to emulate that, and not look at a relationship and be like, I don't want that.
I think we all hope and pray for that. And I think I was just telling someone last night, one of our church ladies, I was saying, the fact that you are worried about being a good mom tells me that you're a good mom.
Yeah.
It's the ones that are like, I got this, I'm great at this, I'm perfect at this. Those are the ones that really probably aren't that great.
Yeah.
So the fact that I think you are, in my opinion, you're always trying to be better. And like you said, thinking maybe I shouldn't have handled it this way. Maybe this would have been a better way. Reevaluating. I'm I'm constantly reevaluating.
Yeah, me too.
Correctly? Second guessing. Yes, maybe that's part of our like type A personality. We got to be the best mom we could be.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's another good thing. We're always trying to get better at what we're doing. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think you gave a lot of good advice, even just based off personal experiences from your mom. So I'm hoping it can help some strained relationships, maybe help prevent, because I have a lot of young moms that listen. So maybe help prevent things, problems down the road.
Yeah.
Maybe they think they need to be stoic and stern all the time and, just correct all the time. But my whole goal is to get young moms just to add some grace. And love.
Yeah. And I definitely Claire's only 6, so I obviously don't have like a huge amount of time of experience, but I just like laugh at my past self sometimes, because like things that like with Clara versus Anna versus Emma, and they're all different. They all have different personalities, but like the way that I handle Emma, I'm like, man, I should have done that with Clara.
Yeah.
And like, I feel bad. Like Claire's the guinea pig.
Yep. I know.
So
That's
like,
why
I'm
the oldest is
constantly
so
learning
blessed.
through my
I know.
mistakes with Clara.
I
And
know.
that's just something the oldest child has to deal with. They're the guinea pig. But yeah, so I just like look at my past self and laugh and like, and I have people that'll like, people that have one or even two kids, they'll like have friends and they'll say things to me and I just laugh. I don't usually comment. I keep it to myself. But I'm like, that's how I was with Clara, and you'll have more kids and you'll quickly learn that that's not
Yep.
how it will work out. In the end, it's just funny. But
It
yeah,
is. Yeah.
sadly, sometimes I wish I could go back. Like, "Oh, if I would have just done this with Clara, or if I would have just done this with Anna, it would have been so much better and so much easier."
Yeah, but I think that's why the firstborn is special because they are, they're the guinea pig. And I feel like I have two firstborns because I feel like Tommy's a firstborn because he's my firstborn boy. But then I feel like Abby is a firstborn again because she's my firstborn girl, and
Yeah.
you have to raise them so differently. The girls and boys are different. So yeah, Aaron said that's why the first get the double portion of the inheritance. It might be, it's just
Yeah.
they put up. I was the firstborn, so but I loved being the firstborn. I loved that spot. I loved being the mother hen and
Yeah. Claire's so good at that. She's such a
yeah.
little mother. She's so
Mhm.
good at that.
Yeah, and it
But
just comes with the territory. She's going to be a natural born leader too,
mhm,
being the firstborn. So I think you're
mhm.
doing great. Keep it up. I'm hoping that this helps a young mom somewhere. If you guys have any questions, leave it down below. But I think we're gonna wrap it up. I hear my husband's back with them, but I hear my children all out there getting wound up. So go ahead and stay on. Do you want to say
Okay.
anything else before you go?
I don't think so. I don't. Hang in there, moms.
Yes.
Just hang in there.
Yep. Very good advice. All right. So stay on while I say goodbye. So we will see you guys
Okay.
next week. I did have a lady in my church actually that wants me to talk about mood swings. So I'm going to try to address that mood swings and how to deal with them and keep your sanity and not bite your husband's head off when you have mood swings. So I will try putting something together and seeing if I can help someone. So we will see